Hi readers, welcome to Chapter 6 of the Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. Warning, profanity will ensue. Make sure you have your copy of the book and your highlighter pen to follow along with me as I discuss which parts I will be making into questions and answers. And you'll highlight it so you know what the page number is. Okay, here we go. Chapter 6. Teo swapped his regalia for comfy sweatpants and a tee. Try not to freak him out, okay? He told Niya as they crossed the hall. What do you mean? She asked with a frown, stopping outside of Shio's door. I mean, I think he's pretty nervous as you can come on a little. You know, he gestured at her full 6-foot-something height and built frame. Lay down. See, you guys, I have to let my cat be in here because if I keep him outside and close the door, you're going to start hearing a wah, 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 and pawing at the door. But he's right behind the camera stand. If he holds still, we'll be fine. If I start to go, you'll know why. Okay, here we go. But apparently Niya didn't get it because she just tipped her head to the side. Strong, Teo clarified with a chuckle. What's wrong with strong? She demanded, propping her hands on her hips. And scary. I'm not scary, Niya barked, to which Teo cocked an eyebrow. She scowled. Shut up. I am very friendly and totally not scary. Before Teo could stop her, she turned and banged her fist on the door. Unfortunately, it hadn't been closed all the way, so it flew open and slammed into the wall. Inside, Shio had been sitting on his bed, head lowered, but when Niya nearly broke down his door, he jumped, hands going up to shield himself. Dios. Teo groaned under his breath. Niya smiled brightly. Hey! Shio looked back and forth between the two of them, alarmed. I think I'm going to highlight, that's funny, what just happened. Okay, so she scared Shio to death just then. She banged on the door and it burst open. Okay. She looked back and forth between the two of them, alarmed. Hi? Sorry, Teo cringed. We were going to check out the kitchen. Do you want to come? Have you had enough to eat? Oh, are you sure? Shio said, surprised. With him in it, the bed looked massive, or maybe it just made him look extra small. People usually avoid me, Shio explained with a half-hearted shrug. You know, 'cause I'm bad luck. Ouch, poor kid, Teo thought, as he had it bad as a jade, but what must it be like to be a jade and a child of mala suerte when everyone thought your mere presence would bring bad luck? Shio reached to gather up the large binder and cards on his bed. I thought I'd make things easier by staying in my room. What's all this? Niya interrupted, plopping herself down on the bed. Oh, it's nothing. Shio tried to grab the open binder, but he wasn't quick enough for Niya. She snatched it up and flipped through the pages. Dude, nice collection. It's nothing really, Shio said, trying to cover up the scattered cards, but it was too late. Teo realized what they were immediately. Hero trading cards were popular at school and constantly passed around by collectors. There were nearly a dozen spread across Shio's bed and even more in the binder. Each one had a picture of a hero with their basic stats listed. Damn, Teo said, impressed as he picked up a few. There were professional heroes like Marino's older sister, Maria, but also golds who were still training in the academy that Teo had never even heard of. Do you have every trading card? Nearly, Shio admitted, his hands twitching like it took everything in him not to snatch them back. Niya gasped. Where's mine? She shouted, flipping wildly through the pages. That's really cool, Teo said. Shio blinked up at him. His rigid shoulders relaxed, just a touch. They do a lot of reprints and updates, though, he explained tentatively. It can be hard to keep up. Teo picked a random card and flipped it over, only to be met with Aurelio's fiery eyes staring back at him. Aurelio stood in the center of the card with his arms crossed over his chest, his expression hard and maybe a little annoyed. Diosa Lumbre's fire glyph in the upper right-hand corner indicated who his godly parent was, in case the gold foil flames around the edges weren't obvious enough. Teo had never seriously collected the cards himself. It was too weird, knowing his mom would never have one, even with everything she did for their city, and Teo would never get one either. It was easy to end up with them, though, as birthday presents or school raffle prizes, and he had kept a little stash, until 3 years ago, when Aurelio's first card was released and found its way into a pack at Teo's favorite bodega. Again, what's going on with Teo and Aurelio? Okay. That afternoon, he had given his box to little Edgar next door. Okay, I'm going to highlight this, that Teo used to have the trading cards of the heroes. He had a few, but then when he saw Aurelio in his pack of cards, he gave his whole box of cards to little Edgar next door, along with every pack he ended up with from then on, unopened. He really doesn't want to see Aurelio for some reason. I'm curious. Wow, they have everything listed now. Strengths, weaknesses, special moves, Teo murmured as he fanned through a few. Look how awesome my thighs are in this one, Niya demanded, shoving the binder in Teo's face so he could see the special edition card where she was kicking a boulder clean in half. Teo leaned around Niya and gave Shio a teasing grin. You're kind of a hero nerd, huh? Red bloomed in Shio's cheeks. Yeah, I guess, he admitted. This will come in handy for the trials, Teo pointed out. Lucky you brought them with you. With this sort of encyclopedic knowledge, maybe Shio wasn't as hopeless as he had originally thought. Highlighting that, I mean, think about it, you guys. Shio's got these cards that list what the heroes' powers are, basically, and their weaknesses too, so that'll help him a little when he's competing against them. I just remembered I'm still hungry, Niya announced, handing the binder back to Shio and jumping to her feet. You should come with us, Teo insisted, while Shio gathered up his cards. Everyone is probably in bed already, and Niya and I are already black sheep anyway. It's true, Niya agreed cheerily. Teo half expected Shio to turn them down, but then in the smallest glimpse of a smile curled his lips. Yeah, okay, he said, pushing his hair out of his face. Niya beamed proudly and gave Teo a look that said, told you so, which he ignored. I like Niya. She's cool. Shio struggled to climb out of the bed, the plush blanket attempting to swallow him up. He was wearing a pair of checkered pajama pants and an old gray long-sleeve shirt. They were way too big on him, which made Teo think they may be hand-me-downs. Cool bracelet, Niya said, highlighting he has a cool bracelet. Around Shio's wrist was a cord bracelet that had red coral, jade eyes, and matte beads of jet. A shiny black charm in the shape of a fist with a protruding index finger dangled from it. Thanks, he murmured, so I highlighted the whole thing, what his bracelet looked like. Thanks, he murmured, quickly tugging his sleeve down over it. That's an azabache bracelet, right? Highlighting that. Shio's face turned red. It's my dad's, highlighting that. It's cool, Teo said, not wanting him to feel self-conscious about it. He'd only ever seen babies wear azabache bracelets for good luck. So that's what the bracelets are for. And babies wore them for good luck, but I guess if you're the son of bad luck, then it makes sense that you would wear a good luck to counterbalance. Now it's going to say exactly what I just said. He supposed it made sense that Shio wore one. If you were the son of Mala Suerte, would you need good luck, or was bad luck part of your whole deal? Didn't seem like a good trait to have while competing in the Sunbearer Trials. More important, Shio probably missed his dad, which was exactly why he needed a distraction. Teo had been expecting a setup like his school cafeteria with round tables and linoleum tile. Instead, the dining room they walked into was just as fancy as the rest of the temple. A long table with high-backed chairs was laden with bowls of fresh fruit. Overhead hung a large golden chandelier in the shape of the sun. Whoa, Shio said quietly, taking everything in. Seriously, Teo agreed. What? Niya asked, looking around. This place is fancy as hell, he told her. Is it? She doesn't. Niya's not impressed because she's used to wealth and elaborate settings. Teo gave Niya a wary glance. Teo threw his elbow into her arm. Not all of us are from gold cities, he reminded her. She's not a douche, I swear, he added to Teo. Not on purpose, Niya clarified, unfazed. Teo let out a small, surprised laugh. Two people walked in from the kitchen, or not people, Teo realized, but gods. The diosa spotted them first, and her face lit up immediately. Hello! Dulce, Niya cheered, bounding across the room, while Teo followed and Teo kept a safe distance behind. With a warm smile and sticky sweet personality, Diosa Pan Dulce was one of Teo's favorite people, highlighting that. She was short with soft curves and wore her hair in braided spirals on either side of her head like a novia sweetbread. Her counterpart, Dios Mais, was less excited to see them. Soul help me, he groaned, coming to an abrupt stop. For the god of harvest, the tall and lanky Dios didn't look like he ate much. He had a long face, a wide nose, earth-rich black skin, and eyes the color of tobacco leaves that were currently glaring at Teo and Niya. Mais and Dulce were both jades, and as such weren't as revered as the greater gold gods, but everyone acknowledged that they were the backbone of any event. They were the best chefs in all of Seoul and very dedicated to their art, though Mais took it a bit more seriously than Dulce. I like the new haircut, Teo said. Before the incident, Mais had shiny cornrows that fell to the middle of his back. Now his hair was styled into glossy 360 waves, highlighting that new haircut. The incident. I'm wondering if the incident was that Dia de los Muertos fiasco where Teo and Niya did something. I think maybe that's what happened to Mais's hair. Mais glowered at him, the edge of his right eyebrow still missing. So the edge of his right eyebrow still missing. What do you want? We'll get to that, Teo said, brushing aside the question. First, how are you? Very busy, Mais huffed. Do you need something? Dulce asked, tightening an apron around her waist. We were hoping for a late-night snack, Niya said, sitting on one of the stools and swiveling back and forth. Do you think you could make us some hot chocolate? And pan, if you've got any, Teo added. Please, they both said in unison, flashing matching smiles. Dulce beamed and moved to go back into the kitchen. Of course. No! Mais snapped, stopping her in her tracks. Teo dramatically flopped over the counter. But we need sugar. Dulce looked to Mais, but he wasn't falling for it. If you want to be a Sunbearer, you need protein and vegetables, he said. But the joke was on Mais. Teo had no desire to win the trials, just to get through them as quickly as possible. But Dios Mais, Niya whined. From the corner of his eye, Teo caught Teo grinning. No, I'm done cooking for tonight, Mais huffed, wiping his hands. I'm going to highlight that they wanted hot chocolate and pan. Okay. Mais huffed, wiping his hands on a dish towel before stomping across the room. If you need a snack, there's plenty of fruit on the table. You shouldn't be filling yourselves up anyway. It's bad to sleep on a full stomach. At the door, he stopped and turned. Good night. And with that, Dios Mais was gone. I'm sorry, you three, Dulce said with an apologetic smile. He's had a very long day, and he does have your best interests at heart. Niya slumped, her bottom lip jutting out in a pout. We know. Teo propped his chin in his hand. The Quetzalcoatl priests always made me hot chocolate when I couldn't sleep. We're just feeling a bit homesick is all. He lifted his shoulder in a shrug and sighed theatrically. I'm going to highlight that the Quetzalcoatl priests made him hot chocolate when he couldn't sleep. Dulce's eyebrows tipped with concern, and she clasped her hands. Aren't we? He turned to give Niya and Teo a pointed look. Oh, yes, very homesick, Niya agreed, bobbing her head enthusiastically. It took Teo a moment to catch on, but then he nodded too. The poor Diosa looked between the three of them, stricken. Her face went on a journey, mouthing, twisting as she anxiously looked to where Mais had left. Okay, just a little treat, she whispered before hurrying into the kitchen. Mais is a stickler, Niya told Shio. Also, we kind of fucked up his hair, and he's still not over it. Long story. So I was right. It was that's why he's kind of grumpy with Teo and Niya, because at the Dia de los Muertos celebration before, they did some kind of prank and it caused a fire that burnt his hair and eyebrow. Dulce is way softer, Teo agreed. He'd barely finished his sentence before Dulce burst back into the room holding a huge tray with 3 steaming clay cups of hot chocolate, topped with whipped cream and canela sticks, and a small mountain of baked goods in all shapes and sizes. Shio's eyes bulged as Dulce set the tray down on the island. Whoa! Thank you, Dulce, Niya sang, pulling the goddess into a tight hug. Oh, she giggled, a blush blooming on her apple cheeks. You're the best, Teo agreed, immediately taking a cup and pig-shaped puerquito. Don't let Mais catch you, she said, brushing off her apron after Niya released her. And if he does, you didn't get it from me. We won't tell a soul, Niya promised with a full mouth, already halfway through an oreja. Okay, so the pig-shaped puerquito and the oreja, these are the different kinds of pan dulce, sweet breads that Dulce brought to them, made for them and brought to them. Thanks, Shio said meekly with a shy smile, his hands cupping a hot chocolate. Pan Dulce beamed and handed them all napkins before retiring for the night. They took their hot chocolate and pan into the common area. Teo put the tray on a coffee table, and they sprawled out on some of the plush armchairs. The hot chocolate was amazing, frothy, velvety smooth, and with just the right amount of spice. The pan was perfect, as only Dulce could make it, but Teo had to tap out after his second concha. I'm in a food coma, Shio groaned, pink crumbs at the corner of his mouth. Someone's going to have to roll me to the first trial, Teo agreed. You're both weak, Niya said, taking another large bite of bigote. I'm going to highlight bigote as another. Bigote in Spanish means mustache. I'm assuming it's another type of sweet bread, pan dulce, as well as concha. Okay, so we've got puerquito, oreja, concha, and bigote. So far, I'm saying that these are, assuming, 4 names of pan dulce, which is Mexican sweet breads. Okay, Niya said, taking another large bite of bigote before washing it down with a swig of hot chocolate. She swallowed, thumped her fists against her chest, and released a belch so loud Shio jumped. The 3 of them dissolved into laughter. Teo was in that funny stage of being too wired to be tired, crackling at the edges from the influx of sugar. Suddenly, voices approached from down the hall. Wait, shh! Teo hissed. Someone's coming! He quickly shoved the nearly empty tray under the table while Shio and Niya sank low in their chairs. The murmuring grew louder until Teo could finally make out who it was. Before I turn the page, I'm going to say, I bet it's some golds. Yep, I'm right. They shouldn't be here, Aurelio said, his voice low and gruff. It's not right. They're jades. The words hit Teo like a punch to the chest. At least we don't have to worry about one of our own losing, came Aristella's voice, loud and clear as they passed by the door. It'd suck if the sacrifice was one of us. Niya moved to get up, but Teo threw out his hand and shook his head. Judging by the determined glower on her face, he thought Niya was going to ignore him and stomp into the hall after them anyway. But then she gritted her teeth and sank back down, fingers digging into the arms of her chair. Yeah, it'll be easy for us to keep them at the bottom. That time it was a cello. We can just focus on winning. Across from him, Shio's chin dipped to his chest. That's not, Aurelio started, but Teo had heard enough. Don't listen to them, Shio, he said, speaking over the voices as they receded down the hall. So Shio's feeling now, especially in what's the word? Shio's feeling especially unconfident. Insecure. I just had a brain fart. Okay. He's discouraged. Okay. Because he's believing the Golds. Shio nodded, but didn't look up, toying with his father's bracelet. Teo's jaw clenched. Just when they'd gotten Shio to break out of his shell, the Golds had to come along and fuck it up. You should have let me go after them, Niya growled. And let them know they got to us? No way, Teo said, crossing his arms and trying to ignore the flush spreading up the back of his neck. We can get them back later, I promise you that, he added to Shio. Niya seemed satisfied with that answer, although Shio didn't look quite as sure. It's totally fucked, Teo said. On TV, they're always portrayed as these selfless heroes protecting all us lowly civilians. But it's all for show, isn't it? Teo said, seething. No offense, Niya. It's true for them, Niya agreed. I don't bother getting to know the others, but our Estella and Ocello are cutthroat as hell. And Aurelio? She laughed and shook her head. The guy just sits there in class like a robot, like he's been programmed. Sorry, she added, seeing Teo's face. I know you were friends. Haha. Now we know that Teo and Aurelio used to be friends. I think maybe they used to be more than that, and something ended their relationship. I don't know what. But again, this reminds me of the TV show The Boys, because the heroes seem like they're so glorious and kind and helping all the little humans, but in reality, they're like really egotistical and selfish. You're friends with Aurelio? Shio asked, finally speaking. Were, Teo emphasized, sitting up straighter. That was a long time ago. Shio's brow puckered. What happened? Teo really didn't feel like rehashing ancient history. He'd given Niya the broad strokes, and she didn't push for more. But if commiserating made Shio feel better... Now, finally, I think we're going to find out what happened. I'm going to highlight that they were friends. Okay. We were friends when we were super little, Teo said, ripping a concha into tiny pieces as he spoke. Aurelio and Aristella were mostly raised by their mortal dad, highlighting. I've never met him, but everyone says he's really nice, totally different from Diosa Lumbre. I mean, you've seen her. She's not exactly the nurturing type, he pointed out. Shio and Niya nodded in agreement. I was really outgoing and Aurelio was super shy. That's interesting, Teo explained. The first time he ever saw Aurelio, he'd looked so small in a group of black-robed priests. Ocello and Aristella were glued at the hip, but Aurelio was always attached to a priest, warily looking around like he was on the verge of tears. When I first saw him at some random ceremony, he looked like he could use a friend. Teo thought Aurelio was lonely, which was a sentiment he could relate to. So, with determination, he decided the two of them should be less lonely together. Aurelio broke out of his shell a bit, and during every ceremony that brought all the dioses and semidioses together at Sol Temple, they were inseparable. Aurelio and Teo were looked after by Quetzal most of the time, playing tag and hide and seek, highlighting this. Aurelio and Teo were looked after by Quetzal, which is Teo's mother, most of the time playing tag and hide and seek around her large wings. Even when we got older, he didn't talk much, except when the academy was brought up, Teo said. The elite training school for Golds was run by Diosa Lumbre in her home city, Sanfuego. Diosa Lumbre's home city was Sanfuego. When she wasn't ruling with the other gods from Sol Temple, she was there instructing. Okay, so highlighting this, Diosa Lumbre was an instructor at in Sanfuego, in her home city, when she wasn't ruling with the gods in Sol Temple. Aurelio always talked about her starting at the academy, how he'd become a proper hero and finally be able to spend time with his mom. So that's what Aurelio wanted when he was little. He wanted to be able to become a proper hero so he could hang around with his mother. For a long while, Teo had assumed he would go to the academy too. He and Aurelio would run around the temple pretending to fight off monsters and rescue civilians. Teo even made homemade trading cards for him and Aurelio. I want to highlight that. Then his mom told him that only golds went to the academy, not jades. Aurelio started at the academy the year after the last Sunbearer Trials. Teo had been heartbroken, but Aurelio promised that he'd tell Teo everything about it. New Year's was the first time they saw each other after that. Teo spotted Aurelio across the room, standing with Aristella and Ocello. He ran up to Aurelio, wanting to hear all about the academy. Okay, so this is New Year's, which was the first time they saw each other after Aurelio started at the academy. Instead of a warm reunion like they had every year, Aurelio was cold and unresponsive. Teo tried to ask him questions, but Aurelio only gave short answers and wouldn't even look at him. He kept his eyes on the floor as Diosalumbre stood by watching. "What's wrong?" Teo tried to ask. "Stop bugging him," Aristella cut in, tugging on her brother's arm. "Golds only hang out with golds." "Other golds," Ocello scoffed. "Yeah, no jades," Aristella agreed. Teo had tried to catch Aurelio's eye, but the other boy turned away. He remembered how humiliating it had felt, how his heart thudded dully in his chest as Ocello and Aristella laughed, and how Aurelio refused to acknowledge him. Waymack found him sometime later, hiding under the sun statue in the courtyard and crying. But he left that part out of the story. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that. Waymack found him later, under the sun statue in the courtyard crying, and that's the part he left out of the story that he told Teo and Niya. So now Niya knows the full story. So yeah, basically after going to the academy and being with other golds, and maybe with some scolding or advice by his mother, Diosalumbre, I'm imagining, he now is shunning Teo because Teo's only a jade. Okay. He started classes at the academy, and I haven't had a real conversation with him since. Teo finished, doing his best to ignore the burning at the back of his throat. "And then you upgraded to me," Niya said, beaming. Teo exhaled a relief laugh. "I sure did." They call Aristella, Aurelio, and Ocello the Golden Trio, highlighting, because they're the top-ranked students at the academy, but they're just a bunch of assholes. All they care about is becoming Sunbearer, and only one of them can win. They'll probably start eating one another alive during the trials. That reminds me of Survivor. That's another TV show. This one's like a reality show. You've probably heard about it because it's been on for 20-something years. But I used to think that it would be like really cool to be on that show, to be on Survivor, because they get to go to some crazy exotic tropical places and live in the wild, and that's right up my alley. But then I saw that it was all about like they would like form these alliances and lie to each other and be mean to each other and form cliques. And I'm like, I don't want to go back to middle school. Thank you, no. So I actually stopped watching it that first season because it just turned out to be so mean-spirited. That's about Survivor, the TV show, that this just reminded me of. Here I go. Back to this. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to that paragraph where I got off on a tangent. They'll probably start eating one another alive during the trials. You'll see, they'll get what's coming to them, Niya said with a pleased smile. I hope you're right. I used to get teased by these girls at school a lot, Teo said suddenly in a small voice. Seriously? Teo asked. Who had the balls to pick on a child of mala suerte? I used to have really long hair, and they'd always come up to me and say how much they liked the curls and how pretty they were. Teo's expression soured as he said the word. Irritation simmered under Teo's skin. He understood all too well. Even after I came out as trans and cut it short, they kept touching it and calling my hair pretty. Okay, so both Teo and Teo are trans, and so that's the girls were bugging Teo for having long girly hair when Shio is a boy. Okay, so I used to have really long hair. The girls kept touching it and saying it was pretty. He came out as trans and cut it short, but they kept on doing it. Shio frowned, absently tugging on a lock of his hair. Then one day, all three of them got lice. That sounds like some bad luck, that they deserved. Then one day, all three of them got lice, like really bad to the point they had to shave their heads. Oh, my Dios, Niya said, fist pressed to her mouth, barely able to hold in a laugh. Shio's shoulders lifted in a small shrug. Bad luck, I guess. That's what they get, Teo agreed with a huff. I like your hair long. He added, I see guys on social media getting perms to get theirs to look like yours, and it's nowhere near as cool. Very handsome, Niya agreed with an enthusiastic nod. For the first time that night, Shio smiled. Teo grinned back. It was nice to meet someone who had been through the same kind of bullshit as him. Niya was his best friend, but as a side-gender girl and a gold, there was a lot about his life and experiences she just wouldn't get. But Shio could. Teo sat upright. You know what? We should team up. Uh-oh, an alliance. Oh well, at least they're nice. Team up? Niya repeated, sweeping her finger on the inside of her mug to get the last drops of melted chocolate. Yeah, I mean, if those three have it out for us, why don't we work together to tear it down? We could be the Jade Trio, or, well, Niya's Gold, but you get the idea. Niya's eyes lit up. We can be the Kick-Ass Trio, because we're going to kick their asses. Ooh, or the Great-Ass Trio, because we got great asses. Or at least I do. Shio, how's your butt? She asked, peeking over at him. Toned? We can start a squat regimen. Shio hesitated, his hand frozen mid-reach for another pastry. I don't give a shit about becoming a Sunbearer, Teo said. I just want to get through the trials in one piece, and we're stronger if we work together, right? So I'm going to highlight that, who's the one that suggested it? Teo. Teo's the one that said we should team up. He doesn't want to win, but he wants to stay alive, and I know that he wants Shio and Niya to stay alive too. Okay, so with everything you know about the golds, we can definitely outsmart them, because Shio's got all those cards with the information. We don't have to do this alone. We can show them they're wrong. He can watch out for Shio. This didn't have to be a death sentence. I don't know, Shio said meekly, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't want to drag you guys down. You won't, Teo insisted. I've always hated those fools anyway, so obsessed with hierarchies and pedigree, Niya said, rolling her eyes. Gold is like the most useless metal, right? She flicked her wrist, and one of her gold bangles leapt into her hand. It's way too soft, good for nothing. I'm highlighting this. Gold's like the most useless metal. Way too soft, good for nothing, but looking pretty. I'm trying to think now. This is something we could research, Think about gold. Is it used for anything else besides jewelry and making things decorated? Like, there's no pure gold money, I think truly because it's too soft, and they use copper, obviously, for pennies, and also copper conducts electricity. Silver's used for a lot of things. Silver and steel, they never make swords or knives out of gold. This is an interesting question that I think we should look into. Is gold used for anything actually useful, or is it only jewelry and decoration? Good question. Okay, here we go. She closed her fist, turning the gold lump into mangled bits. Jade was actually way more valuable back in the day. Teo grinned, adrenaline coursing through his veins. We can look out for one another and make sure none of us become the sacrifice. That'll really show them. Already, he was drunk on the idea of seeing Aurelio's, Aristella's, and Acello's faces at the idea of a gold coming in last. What do you say? I am so in, Niya agreed, leaning forward to rub her hands together. For a long moment, Shio chewed on the inside of his cheek, but then he finally nodded, his curls bouncing against his forehead. Okay. A sudden lightness made Teo feel giddy. then it's us against them. Now, being in the trials didn't feel like a death sentence. Now they had the chance to really prove something, not just to the Golds, but to everyone. Cool. I like their trio, and I'm hoping that they do well. And I'm also, I don't know about you, but somewhere in my heart, I'm hoping that Aurelio comes around. Maybe Teo will save him somehow, but I hope that Aurelio somewhere along the way apologizes to Teo. I know that in my life, especially, when I was younger, middle school, high school, even late, I don't know. There have been several times where I feel like maybe I was not very nice to other people. And now, looking back, I realized that the reason I wasn't nice is because I was way too concerned about what other people were thinking about me. More popular people, or more attractive people, or people that I liked, or whatever. And so it made me not treat other people as nicely as they deserved. And I feel bad about that. I grew up and I realized that that's not the way to be, So I'm hoping that Aurelio comes to that same conclusion and apologizes. So on that note, that's the end of chapter 6, and I'll see you next time. Until then, you know what to do. I'm not going to say it. Okay, bye. You read the books, now ready, get set, BOBQC.net. You read the books, now ready, get set, BOBQC.net.